The lights were going out behind Johnny Van Zant as he stood on stage. The first sounds of Free Bird started to play. He put his hand on the microphone, closed his eyes, and sang the same words that his brother Ronnie had sung almost 50 years before. Behind him, everyone in the room stopped talking. Some people put up their hands, and others cried, but not because they felt bad about what they did. Instead, they felt something deeper, like a goodbye that never really finished. Now that you've lost someone close to you, how can you follow in the path of a legend? What can you say when you raise your voice to songs that used to belong to a brother who died too soon? Each line holds an unnameable sadness. Famous people weren't the answer for Johnny Van Zant. When there are flowing numbers or cheers. Even though Ronnie wasn't there, he was still standing, singing, and keeping the music going. Johnny is the youngest of 7 children in the Van Zant family. Southern rock runs through their blood. In the 1970s, Ronnie was the one who paved the way for Lynyrd Skynyrd to become an American hero. But Ronnie died in a plane crash in 1977, and Johnny, who was only 17, went through a long period of sadness. He then took up the torch as a promise to his family and to the American South. Johnny has been the lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd since 1987. Nobody asked him to be Ronnie, and he never tried. He instead offered a continuation based on respect, which would take Skynyrd's spirit through time. Even when things were bad and there were final shows that kept going, Free Bird was still standing there with the crowd saying goodbye to him again. It's not Johnny Van Zant who can fill in. During his early life, he kept the flame alive. His birth date is February 27, 1960, and he was born in Jacksonville, Florida, a working-class city in the northeast of the state, where the sounds of Southern music mixed with the sounds of dusty dirt roads and truck engines to make something truly special. Music was not strange to the Van Zant family. It was how their parents raised them, the way they ate every day, and how they learned to listen to the world. He was the third son of Lacey Van Zant, a strict father who served in Pearl Harbor and then became an interstate truck driver. It was like a musical trip every time I got behind the wheel. As his boys got older and developed their own tastes, the radio in his cab switched between sad country songs, old gospel harmonies, and rock and roll. Johnny's mom, Marion, was the emotional center of the family. Love and Christian faith kept them together. That family taught Johnny military discipline, Southern pride, and a deep love of music as he grew up. Johnny has always been shadowed by his 2 famous brothers. Ronnie Van Zant, the oldest, was a natural leader and the genius behind Lynyrd Skynyrd. Middle brother Johnny Van Zant was just as fiery, and in the late 1970s, he led the band Point 38 Special to big-time success. Johnny, who was smaller, quieter, and less outgoing, would often sit at the edge of the practice room and watch everything without speaking. Initially, he didn't believe he would become a singer. Johnny loved playing the drums the most. He would play beats on tin cans, kitchen counters, and anything else that would make a sound for hours every day. But he was always musical, no matter where he was located. Johnny formed his own band when he was a teenager, not to become popular, but just to live in the music. The same as his brothers. Tragically, bad things happened. When Johnny was only 17, on October 20th, 1977, the plane bringing Lynyrd Skynyrd crashed into the woods in Mississippi, killing Ronnie and 2 other band members instantly. Ronnie was sitting in the front row. For Johnny, it was a calm afternoon. There was a call while he and his father were pulling weeds outside. Just a short call and a scream, and his whole musical world changed forever. No more Skynyrd or Big Brother. There is only a 17-year-old boy between the wreckage of a story and his own grief. But Johnny didn't break down. Instead, he quietly started getting ready for what he didn't know would become his life's work, making sure that his brother's soul would keep singing through him. Early career. Johnny Van Zant didn't start making money as a musician right away after the shock of 1977. In the early 1980s, he lived more slowly, doing odd jobs around Jacksonville and sometimes playing with friends in small bars. No one, not even Johnny, thought he would ever take over the fame Ronnie had left behind. But music kept running through him, not loud or forced, like a bloodline you can't stop, but as something that had to keep going. By late 1979, Johnny had formed the Johnny Van Zant Band, a different group from the Lynyrd Skynyrd legacy that didn't try to copy Ronnie's style or borrow from it. He didn't choose to become a second famous lead singer. He decided instead to be a Southern storyteller with a voice that was raw, honest, and full of quiet thought. The first record, No More Dirty Deals, came out in 1980. While it didn't do very well on the charts, reviewers saw it as an emotionally powerful piece that came from someone who had really lost someone. You could tell Johnny was singing to himself in songs like Only the Strong Survive and Stand Your Ground, as he fought against expectations, memories, and the shadow of a family legend. For the next 5 years, he kept putting out records. The second round was in 1981. Van Zant, 1985, and The Last of the Wild Ones, 1982, are two notable movies. In that time, his music had a standard Southern rock base, but it also had more personal undertones. It had less swagger than Skynyrd and more introspection then. Especially sad was the younger brother who would never get to call out to his older brother again. Johnny didn't have a strong or sharp voice yet, but his speech was full of feeling. Screaming wasn't needed to get people to pay attention. It sounded like Van Zant was whispering through every chorus. Still, they were not able to achieve economic success. The band had to stop playing around the middle of the 1880s so Johnny could take care of his growing family and face the hard truth. It's possible that his solo business will never take off. But then out of the blue, a door opened from the place where his past was hidden. Nearly 10 years after the crash, in 1987, the members of Lynyrd Skynyrd who were still alive agreed to get back together to honor Ronnie Van Zant and the other people who died in the accident. That's not all they needed in a voice. Someone who could deliver the spirit. Johnny, who had promised his brother he would never replace him, was now the only one who could keep that light alive. Johnny didn't walk on stage that night as a copy of Ronnie. He went on as a brother, singing for the one who was dead and starting a new job that he had never wanted. But he got it now. He was born to keep that tradition alive. A successful career. In 1987, Johnny Van Zant knew this wasn't just a show when he walked out on stage for the Lynyrd Skynyrd reunion tour. It was an official goodbye that had never been said. 10 years after the terrible plane crash in 1977, the band came back, not to make up for what was lost, but to keep the music living. The youngest brother, Johnny, used to stand quietly at the edge of the practice room. Now he was in the middle of the stage, carrying his own grief and the hopes of millions of fans. The stress was unbearable. All of the songs he sang used to belong to Ronnie. Songs like Simple Man, That Smell, Tuesday's Gone, and Free Bird. The people were split. Some people told him that he would never be as good as his brother. Some people said the reunion was an insult to the spirit. However, Johnny did not fight. He only sang with his own voice. He didn't copy or overdo it. He just picked up where the last singer left off with a story. Afterward, a very interesting thing took place. People listened in silence for a while, then started singing along. What started out as a way to remember the past slowly turned into a rite that helped people remember, forgive, and move on. So, Johnny started to be the main voice of Skynyrd. His bravery in not trying to be Ronnie made him stand out. Not because he was Ronnie's brother. He was in charge of Lynyrd Skynyrd during some rough times over the next 30 years. Albums, starting with The Last Rebel in 1993 and going through God and Guns in 2009 and Last of a Dying Breed in 2012. These records weren't as popular as they used to be, but they kept the soul of Southern rock alive. Feelings of freedom, pride, and pain. In particular, his 1990 solo song, Brickyard Road, which he wrote in honor of Ronnie, became a #1 hit. Say hello to Dad and Mom. Tell them I'm okay. I'll be home one day. On that Brickyard Road is one of the most loved rock songs. Johnny and his brother Donnie also worked together on the Project Van Zant, which mixed Southern rock and country. They released albums like Brother to Brother in 1998 and Get Right with the Man in 2005, with the song Help Somebody hitting #1 on the Billboard Hot Country chart. Johnny wasn't successful based on awards or numbers. It was because, over time, he stayed the link between two generations, singing old songs with a fresh heart and turning individual pain into healing for everyone. Rock music is dying out, but Johnny Van Zant is keeping it alive, not through showmanship, but through humility. Johnny Van Zant is not a flashy rock star when the stage lights go down and the traveling life ends. He is a simple man who lives in Jacksonville, Florida, with his wife and kids. This is where he was born and raised and never wanted to leave. As the voice of Lynyrd Skynyrd for more than 30 years, he has rarely been caught in scandals, never made the news for being controversial, and never looked for media drama. He made that choice and promised himself in private that success would never change who he was. Johnny got married pretty young, and he's always kept his family secret. He has found comfort in his wife, a woman who doesn't like being the center of attention after long trips on the road. They have 3 kids together, and his youngest daughter, Taylor Van Zant, is very close to him, in song and in real life. Johnny's fans who have seen him act in the last few years would know. He often turns around at the end of Simple Man and waves softly toward the backstage area, where Taylor stands waiting alone. Yes, that piece did last a while. Johnny suddenly called off all Lynyrd Skynyrd tour plans in September 2024 after learning that Taylor had been diagnosed with a rare brain disorder. A cavernoma is a problem with the blood vessels that can cause seizures, strokes, or even death if it is not handled quickly. Even though tests later showed the growth wasn't cancerous, it was still a hard time for the father, who had lost his brother in a terrible plane crash. Johnny first lowered his guard on social media. He wrote, "I've experienced too many deaths. This time, I can't take it anymore. Please pray for my daughter." Thousands of messages poured in from fans across America. Once again, Johnny realized, music may connect us, but truth brings us closer. This wasn't the first time he had to fight battles outside of music. In 2006, Johnny was rushed to the hospital for an emergency appendectomy while on tour, forcing the band to cancel several shows. In 2011, he was hospitalized again for a serious infection following surgery, a case of cellulitis that required weekly 4 antibiotics. Yet through it all, Johnny never complained, never stopped. His private life was never loud, but it speaks volumes about the man behind the stage lights, a devoted father, a quiet husband who shields his family, and a younger brother who has never stopped mourning Ronnie, not as a legend, as a loved one who never came home. Legacy and impact. When people mention the name Johnny Van Zant, they often think of him as the replacement, the one who stepped into the place Ronnie Van Zant left behind. But to stop there is to miss the point. Johnny didn't replace, he preserved. And it was that quiet perseverance, never showy, never trying to wear the mantle of legend, that built a legacy all his own. Understated, but undeniable. For over 3 decades holding the mic for Lynyrd Skynyrd, Johnny proved that while a band can lose its soul, it doesn't have to lose its identity. He never tried to be Ronnie, never mimicked his posture, his phrasing, or his voice. Instead, he brought to Skynyrd a new sincerity, a raw Southern tone, and the steady calm of someone who grew up under the shadow of tragedy, but never let it consume him. Not only did he help Skynyrd survive and carry on, Johnny expanded the reach of Southern rock to a new generation. Alongside his brother Donnie, he created the Van Zant Project, releasing country rock albums like Brother to Brother, 1998, and Get Right with the Man, 2005. The song Help Somebody not only charted high in the country world, but carried a distinctly Van Zant message. Be kind, help others, even when no one is watching. In Johnny, fans saw an artist who didn't chase trends, but chose the long road, the grounded path. He never became the face of a movement, nor was he hailed by the media like many of his peers. But to the fans of Southern rock, Johnny was the last flame bearer, a symbol of loyalty to roots, to honest music, and to memories that never fade. His legacy isn't measured by album sales or trophies on a shelf. It lives in the way. Each time he sings Free Bird or Simple Man, Johnny doesn't just perform. He brings listeners back to a time, to a person, to a Southern soul. And in that moment, even if only for a few minutes, the music makes what was lost live again. Current life. In 2025, Johnny Van Zant turns 66, a milestone at which many artists choose to retire. But for Johnny, rest has never been an option. He's still on stage, still holding the mic, still singing Simple Man or Free Bird, as if each song is a lifeline, connecting him to the past, to a lost brother, to a once broken band, and to the millions of fans who still can't let go of the memories. After the major upheaval in 2024, when his youngest daughter Taylor Van Zant was diagnosed with cavernoma, Johnny canceled all scheduled tours to care for his family. Though the tumor turned out to be non-cancerous, facing the possibility of losing his child left him with a fresh wound, quiet and persistent. On social media, Johnny couldn't hide his vulnerability, writing, "I've lost too many people. I can't lose my daughter too." For first time in his career, He allowed himself to be publicly fragile. But he didn't stay away for long. At the end of 2024, Johnny returned to the stage with a landmark tour, celebrating 50 years of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Among those performances, the night at the Ryman Auditorium, America's mother church of country music, was recorded and released mid-2025 as the album celebrating 50 years. Live at the Ryman. It was also the final performance to feature founding member Gary Rossington, who passed away not long afterward. For Johnny, that night wasn't just a tribute, it was a farewell ritual. In an April 2025 interview, Johnny shared, "I know Gary's somewhere, still listening to us play, and I know Skynyrd shouldn't disappear. We don't keep going for ourselves. We do it for the ones who can't anymore." Under Johnny's leadership, Lynyrd Skynyrd remains active through 2025, embarking on a summer-long tour across the US and Europe, including shows in the UK, the Netherlands, and Germany in July. Music isn't the only thing that fans appreciate. They keep coming back because they know. That's right, Skynyrd comes back to life every time Johnny walks on stage. Not physically, but in spirit. Johnny has a simple life when he's not performing. Living with his wife in Jacksonville, not far from where he wrote his first songs as a child. As any Southern uncle you've known all your life, he gets up early, takes care of a small yard, shops at local markets, and talks with neighbors when he's not on tour. He stated in a podcast, "I do not require a mansion or a sports car. I require my music, the old house, and family dinner." Besides not having any personal social media, he also doesn't go to any famous parties. Johnny wants to keep to himself, simply by walking, as he has done throughout his career, quietly, without any fuss, but always present. When Johnny Van Zant sings, he does something that not many people can. He keeps a symbol living with every breath, every lyric, and every time he sings, for those who can't sing anymore. Ronnie Van Zant was always there for Johnny Van Zant. He lived to make sure that shadow didn't go away. He never tried to replace a dead legend or seek the attention for more than 30 years. As a promise, a right, and a way to keep memories from dying away, he just stepped up, took the mic, and sang the songs that millions of people had heard his brother sing. Rock stars usually do things like what he did. There won't be any scandals, loud claims, or living for the biggest shows or brightest lights. Johnny's voice was all he had, and it was sometimes rough from feeling and other times broken from sadness. His songs weren't just music, they were journeys. From a 17-year-old boy whose brother died in an accident to a father who is still upset about his sick daughter to an older artist who is still standing strong in Jacksonville, Florida, the place where it all started. Absolutely no Grammys. You can't be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by yourself. It's possible that Johnny never needed those things, though. Not silver statues or gold plaques. But something harder to name is what his impact is. Like when someone freezes when they hear Free Bird. Watching Simple Man at night, while a tear falls from his eye, and bowing his head in silence. There is no doubt that it is a goodbye to a brother who never came home. Johnny Van Zant is the last child of a generation still alive. People who grew up with Southern rock music learned through pain, hope, and the need to tell their story. Keeping telling it. Musically, not with words. There were no statements, but people remember. Not to brag, but they know that a part of Lynyrd Skynyrd's soul is still here every time he shows up. Have you ever listened to a song where the singers seem to be talking about your pain? If you've ever stood still while listening to Freebird or Simple Man, share it. Simply because Johnny might be singing for you too. You never told anyone how hurt you were, and you never really let go of the things you lost. You might remember that something wasn't lost when he sings. Musicians who sing with all their hearts,